Sharing the right screen on the first try. Okay, y'all can see the screen that says branding for your business. In my branding,
thinking about it.
Is thinking about it?
We got it.
Okay, good. So like I said, my computer is it's having more issues with, it runs the fan all the time. So I have a little cooling pad, so hopefully that will help. So in our last session, we talked a little bit about, marketing your business on a budget. And one of the things that we talked about actually was branding and doing things like designing your logo and that sort of thing, like doing that work on your own as one of the ways that you can certainly market or control some of the marketing elements in your business on a budget. But I wanted to talk a little bit more about specifically what does branding look like in your business. So to get started, how about if I do it that way? Okay, so when you think of branding, tell me what comes to mind for you, like your own personal definition. Any thoughts, feedback? Hi, Linda.
Colors.
Colors, yep.
Font.
So for me, beyond the colors and the font and the brand of the logos and things like that, it's a consistent message that represents the core of the services that I bring. And it's targeted to my ideal client so that when my ideal client sees me, they know, yep, that's me. And if they're not my person, they go, that's not me. And they just move on.
So you think of branding, you think both as qualifiers and disqualifiers in your words.
Correct. Plus also that everything is consistent. So like my colors are consistent. My logo shows up everywhere. Every time they see something, before that I even open my mouth, they'll know, oh, that's Judith. And this is what I can expect from her as they continue to familiarize themselves with me.
That's great. Yep. Anybody want to add to that? Change anything, or what you got, Linda?
For me, it's about a promise delivered. So I can't say, that my brand is Zest Your Life. If I show up and I go, I'm so happy you're here. It has to be consistent with not just the colors and the logos and the car I drive and the clothes I wear, but it has to be consistent with the energy that I bring in to the space. You don't expect the flying nun to be flying around. That's not, because nuns, that's not part of their branding. Right. Nuns are just chill. Right. But so to me, it's got to express your own personality and the expectations of what people expect from you. If they expect you to be, I hate to use the example, but the Dalai Lama a year ago, or a month ago, then they expect a certain ambiance, or Michael Beckwith. You expect a certain energy, a certain branding that goes with that. I think that all goes together.
Yeah, I think that's great. Anybody else want to add anything else? So when you think about when you first started your business, my guess is that those things were like, they were out there, but like generally speaking, when we say, okay, I'm going to break out on my own, I'm going to do my own thing, the first thing that comes to people's minds is exactly what Liz said. It's your logo, it's your colors, it's your fonts, because when you Google what is a brand, it is most often the first things that people talk about, it is exactly those things. And so a lot of times what we see is that businesses or people just getting started in their business, that's what they're going to focus all their time and their money and their energy on. When in reality, as we were talking, my apologies, hang on for just a second. Come on, get back, you and your bottle gotta go. Go. Goodbye, love you. Let's see how long that lasts. Sorry, puppy. 11 weeks. So, when you start, you have these, everybody says, well, we got to have these things. And so like, that's where they focus all their time and their energy. And because a part of our brand is that I'm a little bit of a nerd, and that comes out in, the information that I share and I convey. So here's my nerdy statistic for this training. So color and design raise brand recognition by 80%. So it's not like it's not important, But to the point of what both Judith and Linda talked about, brand is so much more than just your colors and your fonts and your logos. So what we're going to talk about in this training is a lot about really about identifying what should you be focusing on when it comes to branding, depending on what stage of business you're in. So here's my trusty quote. Also something that I really like is thinking about like, the overall, what are the things that people remember? So, and this also kind of reinforces what both Judith and Linda were talking about, is that every single part or every interaction that you have is a part of your branding. So whether that's your messaging, whether that's your tone, whether that's Linda, like 99% of the time is going to show up wearing orange and she's got zesty things in her background. Like all of that stuff is a part of that brand. How your voice comes across in your messaging, whether that's by phone or by video or by email, all of that is part of your brand. So obviously branding is more than just a logo. So it is not only your messaging, it is the story of your business. It is the values that you align your business to. It's also things like what makes you, your product and your business unique. Susan's coming in, sorry. And what's that value proposition? So all of those things are part of your brand. What are the things that your products and your services are actually part of your brand? So when you are thinking about creating a new offering, making sure that that product or service that you're about ready to launch is in alignment with your brand and your business. So as an example, Beth is, she runs a local yoga studio in Roanoke. If she decides to start running painting programs, that could be interesting. It may also not be in alignment with the vision and the mission of Grace Yoga and Pilates. So, thinking about like when an opportunity comes up, where does that fit into the vision of the company and the brand of the company? And then the other piece is the customer experience. What sort of experience do you want your customers to have? And so I had a quick little story that I wanted to share. And this is like a transformational story from a past client that we worked with. And I really apologize for the craziness that's outside the door. So we have a client who had a very high ticket offer. She enrolled, numerous times throughout the year, like open cart, closed cart kind of situation. Program was about $15,000. And when people signed up, she had no problems converting clients. But when that client came time to renew, they oftentimes dropped off. So they didn't renew, even though there was opportunities for them to participate year after year. Were they unsatisfied? No way of really knowing. And the reason being that when somebody bought, it was just kind of this convoluted sort of experience. It was very inconsistent with, what one person got versus another. What happened when somebody started to when they just joined, like what was their onboarding experience? What was the process looking like when they came, at the 10 and 11 month mark? Was there a way of giving them a heads up that they're about ready to lose access? Was there an invitation for them to move, so there were all these holes in what was ultimately a really premium experience. And so even though the program itself was really amazing, the delivery was lacking in a lot of things that were totally out of alignment with their brand. And so one of the first things that we did when we started working with them was, okay, so let's look at your website. Let's look at the things that you say that you do. Let's talk about the transformative experiences that you're creating with someone. And how does this match or not match that? And so that was exactly where we went after solutions that were going to help us identify, how do we create a better brand aligned product as a part of that customer experience. And if you could just hang on for a second, I'm going to have Annika come grab Shuri. Okay, sorry about that. All right, so have you guys ever heard much about the Starbucks logo?
Yes.
What do you know about it?
It's the mermaid.
Mm-hmm. Anything else?
It was created by one of the original owners for something about artwork or something he was doing, but definitely a mermaid, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, tell us, because I don't remember the whole story now.
Yeah, I don't remember the whole story either, but there is a story and it's a good one.
So the part of the story that I really want to pay attention to is that if you drive past a Starbucks today, does the logo say Starbucks?
Yes.
No.
No,
Oh, it doesn't literally say Starbucks.
no.
But and that's the way kids learn how to read. It's with the symbols,
Yeah.
not the words. So they can tell which Shell Gas or Esso Gas or Loblaws or Dominion Store by the logo, not by what the words say. Maybe they can't read the words, but they know what that means.
Yep. So, but in the beginning, Starbucks was not a household name. And so their logo has always been the mermaid, but it used to have to say Starbucks. So it used to say Starbucks in the circle, around the actual image. But as the business has evolved and as there's a Starbucks inside of a Starbucks, we now know with such a high degree of familiarity, they don't have to say who they are for us to automatically know exactly what company that is, what their brand is, what we're going to get when we walk through those doors. But we, as small businesses, don't have that luxury. And so I think it was just an important thing to just sort of point out as we start to talk about the different stages of business, because if you apply the same rules that Coca-Cola or Apple or Starbucks is applying in their business, it's totally going to be a miss because they're at a different stage of their own, growth experience than you are. So recognizing, where you are, like in terms of your own business's evolution, dictates essentially what you should be focusing on, what you should be prioritizing. The other thing so I took a graphic arts class in high school, or a couple of years of it. And one of the things that I found was really interesting was, we did sort of an exercise like this, and this was in the 90s. And, it was seeing like a portion of a logo. And so you don't even see the whole thing. You just see a little like the top part of a cursive C, and that's Coca-Cola, or you see the little bit of the M, or Ronald McDonald's curly hair. And it was one of those, like, it is such a powerful tool when you have a very clearly defined brand, and it does exist beyond imagery, but images are such a memorable thing for us. And I remember the teacher talking about how McDonald's was so successful in their branding that Ronald McDonald was more recognizable than Jesus, which I thought was just absolutely fascinating. So number one, Jesus has lots of different appearances, but Ronald McDonald does not, or did not. Like, he's kind of been phased out because people are scared of the clown. But back then, he was like a relevant part of the McDonald's brand to such an extent that everybody knew who Ronald McDonald was. Not everybody knew who Jesus was. So I thought that was pretty, like, obviously pretty memorable, because I learned that in like 1991. So there you go. Okay, so if you are in stage one of your business, these are the kinds of things that you should be thinking about as you are focusing on branding. And I would say most, if not all of us, are beyond this stage in business. However, it's really important to know and understand what things should be accomplished in each stage of your business, because even if you are in a growth stage or you're in a more established stage in other elements of your business, if there's things missing as a part of your branding strategy, it's really important to then go back and backfill that information. So when you're going through the startup stage in your business, this is the period of time where you focus on mission, vision, values, and be very clear on what they are, because everything else, your logo, your colors, all of that stuff needs to actually be built on that framework of your mission, vision, values. So if you're saying that you're, let's say part of your vision is really about being state of the art or being a big risk taker, and then everything that you create from a visual standpoint is very corporate or conservative, you can see how that mismatch is not necessarily going to create a long-term strategy for alignment. So understanding that mission, vision, values from the very get-go, and then building from there helps you create alignment across all the different elements and pillars of your brand. Knowing who your target audience and your niche is. Oh, look at that. There's a little dot. That's so cool. I'm going to start using Canva more often now. I'm getting better at it. Sorry about that. So having that target audience and that niche, and you guys hear us talk about this all the time, that being really clear on who that is. If you serve everyone, you serve no one. If you're not clear on who that person is that you're creating your content for, how is your brand supposed to actually speak to them? I will say, on a personal story, if you've been around Confluence for a few years, and maybe you guys have noticed, maybe you haven't, the logo of our color company, just as a simple example, I actually never liked the original colors, never liked them. But we changed it last year or the year before. And I changed it to try to make it feel a little bit more feminine, because the people who we've been trying to work with for years and years have been specifically women. But if you would have gone to our website 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 8 years ago, you would not have looked at it and said, oh yeah, she specializes in working with women. If you look at it today, it's not masculine at all. It's not necessarily disqualifying men or being like a total turnoff to men, but we have made efforts at making our content more feminine focused, because that's really who we want to work with. So I never had a mystery around who my ideal client was, but I definitely had a mismatch on like saying this was who my audience was and this was what my content looked like. Does that make sense? So for me, it was like, I don't know why it took me as long as it did, because that logo has been around for 6 years. And it took me until last year, the year before that, to finally actually change the colors. I just complained about it for several years instead. So your unique selling proposition. So again, going through those exercises of understanding exactly what it is that you do that's different from your competition. You don't know what that is. How are you supposed to ultimately help, a customer fill in those gaps for them? So it's your job to do that for them, not the other way around. And ultimately, building a strong foundation for your brand helps you create cohesive messaging. So this is the fundamental elements. And once you've done it once, doesn't mean that you don't ever do it again. So if, say, for example, you sort of fell into business, and I'm not saying that this is the case, Maggie, for you, but I could see you being someone who could very well have like started in the work that you were doing and then looked back and went, oh, wow, I just created a business. Like I could see something like that happening in the world of photography, because when somebody sees that you've got talent and you're like, all of a sudden you've got clients and you've got momentum, but you have no idea exactly, you're like, how did I get here? And I'm not really sure exactly who I want to be serving and those sorts of things. So that's why it's really important to even start with the fundamental basics. Like this is the startup. If you haven't done this, go back and do it, because this is the foundation that everything is built off of. Stage 2, growth. So this is where we start to focus on expanding that brand and that presence. So to me, this is about intentionality. So doing things with that consistency. So establishing your brand in the market is really helping you focus on attracting new clients. And building consistency helps you see sustainable growth. So in my little notes, I put scaling isn't sexy, which I feel like I say to people all the time, because it's the not fun part. If you have a choice between designing beautiful pages and making pretty free things, or making pretty courses or things like that, or sitting down and creating the rules by which you will create your content, or the systems and the processes by which you vet all of your messages before they go out, or things like that, which would you rather spend your time doing? Anybody?
Well, you know what I'm going to say.
What's that, Liz?
I feel like that comment was directed to me, because I spend so much time making our landing pages like beautiful and pretty and all this, but the messaging as well. The messaging is hugely important.
And it's not directed exclusively at you. It's directed, I think, probably at all of us.
I'm giving you a hard time.
Myself, yeah, and myself included, because it's a lot more fun to do the creative stuff than it is to do the boring stuff. Yeah, what you got, Judith?
So I'm past doing all the creative stuff. I'm kind of like on creative overload. I'm done with being creative. I was like, okay, I got it. Here it is. This is what I do. But the messaging excites me. Sunday afternoon, I was sitting there, and I love American Idol, y'all. I just love American Idol, right? And I've been wanting to do a reel about American Idol for a couple of weeks. And it was like, oh, I'm going to do a reel on why I'm so inspired by watching American Idol. Ooh, and then I'm going to do one on this, and I'm going to do one on this, and I'm going to do one on this. And I came up with like 6 reel ideas, just boom, 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 boom. And I was just jotting them down. And then yesterday I shot 5 reels, bam. And then I had an experience yesterday afternoon with our handyman, who kind of started pouring his heart out to me because he's been watching my reels on Facebook. And oh, okay, so there's another reel for me. There's something else to talk about. There's a blog post. There's a this. So I'm starting to get super excited about the messaging, and people are responding and they're getting into my calendar and stuff. So that's turning me on to pay
Yes.
more attention to the messaging and keep refining it.
And 2 weeks ago, we talked about, sorry, I skipped ahead. 2 weeks ago in our marketing on a budget, we talked about content planning as a part of, like, how do you make, save your money and things like that. One of that is creating your content pillars. So when you have your content pillars, that's helping you with that consistent messaging. If you don't sit down and identify what your content pillars are, then you sit down and you look at a blank screen and you're like, oh yeah, it's choose your own adventure. What do I feel like writing about today? And when it's different every single time, it's really hard for your audience to understand exactly who you are and what you're about. The more consistent you are, the less likely, or the less they have to think, the less they have to do work, and the less work they have to do, the less likely they are to go somewhere else because somebody else is going to be easier. So we always are talking about eliminating unnecessary mental calorie burns. And the ways that we do that is consistency in our branding and consistency in our messaging. So when you're doing your networking and collaboration, so so many of our attendees today, with the exception of Liz, I think, are FemCity members. And one of the things I love about FemCity is that every single time you have a chance to, oh, I'm sorry, Maggie as well. So every single time you stand up or you do you are doing your elevator speech. So like several times a month, you are practicing. How do you explain exactly what it is that you do? What is your position in the market? What is it that you, how, like that unique value proposition that you created in stage one, now all of a sudden gets perfected, tweaked, adjusted, optimized in stage two. The other thing that you're doing in stage two is starting to productize your offers. And so one of the things that we spend a lot of time talking about with clients is going from custom proposals, Maggie, you and I have talked about this recently, to very clear product offerings. Because again, stage two is about scalability. So it's not fun it takes work, it takes mental mindset to go from, I can create a custom tailored experience for you because that's easier to get a yes than this is what I do. That feels a little bit scarier. But when you create productized offers, that messaging is that much more clear, the consistency is that much more clear, and your ability to wash, rinse, repeat is that much easier when you have clearly defined products that you can then, essentially hire somebody else to do, or, automate those processes whenever and wherever possible. And also when you know who your ideal client is from stage one, then your customer stories become that much more consistent. So that story that I shared about a client in stage one, like that's the kind of work that we do over and over again, because we specialize in one particular thing. We specialize in automations around systems, processes, and your business. So that could be sales. It could also be about customer onboarding. It could be about lead generation. It could be about all of those things. So my success stories look the same over and over again because we do the same kind of work over and over again. So stage three, and this is where I see that we all kind of start to dabble into some of these other more advanced areas. So even if you're not in this fully established business stage or in an expansion and maturity stage, there are things that you're probably doing as it relates to your brand when it comes to how you build that consistency. So maintaining and refining your brand is what you're focusing on when you're in the established stage in your business. So that means going back and looking at your mission, vision, values. Is your mission, vision, values still in alignment with your brand? And is that still in alignment with what you are doing in your business? And is it what you want to be doing in your business? So even though it's here kind of in the established, even in the growth stage, every time you release a new product, it needs to butt up against those mission, vision, values. Starting to really hone in on consistency around collecting those customer feedback and testimonials. Although if you're working with us, you're going to hear us talking about it from day one. That way it doesn't feel so hard once you get to this stage, because you're really good at asking for them and also automating the process. So then you don't have to manually do it. So that's where we can kind of help you move into other more advanced stages of business, or potentially move your business further along in that growth process simply by using the tools that you have. And then I want my arrow to go the other way. Whoops, sorry. Oh, Sorry about that. I'm still learning how to use the dot. Okay, so, and then monitoring your competitors and industry trends. So another piece for transparency for me is I will say, like, since day one of saying, okay, I'm going to do this whole, I'm going to start a business, has been having the wisdom to know when and how to innovate. How do you evolve your business as so that you stay relevant in the market? So understanding what your competitors are doing and knowing, do I need to pivot to stay competitive, with them, or to stay ahead of them, or do I need to go in a different direction? Is the right thing to do to stay here? That's really what you're focusing on when you're at that established stage of business. Anybody have any thoughts or feedback they want to add to this stage? What you got, Judith?
So this is kind of here and back on stage too. An interesting phenomenon has been happening for me in that I was very established in this is what I do. For me, I was kind of a one-note Johnny. When somebody came to work with me, it looked like this. That was the only thing it looked like. And what's happened to me in the last month is I've had all these awarenesses and awakenings that there are other things that I can do that are fully aligned with my brand that I can offer also.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've got some on the drawing board with a pen in them to come back to in a minute. And then one of them I just went for last week, and I put together an offering, and I've personally been contacting people about it, and I've almost got it filled like in a week's time, because I have this thing that happened, me, I have this thing that happened that this is something you need to do. And I jumped on it and I did it, and it's almost full. And so it's been cool to see that happen, because it's been my mind is blown that, oh, I'm not a one-note Johnny. There's these other things that I can do too that are still going to serve my client base and perhaps be an introduction or an expansion on what I offer them. So that's been really fun and cool to be experiencing.
That's awesome. So basically at this point, customer need is helping you drive new product offerings. So they're helping you see and create new opportunities in your business.
May I rephrase that?
Please do.
Okay, and y'all, I'm pretty woo, so if you're not woo, you may not get this. So I'm gonna just warn you ahead of time. I think what's happening is that my guides are coming in and saying, yes, you're very good at this, and this is very beneficial for your clients, and offer this too, because this is something else that people who need to work with you will enjoy. So I'm listening and paying attention.
So how do you use, or what sort of system or mechanism do you have to, I guess, sort of to ensure that you're staying within that brand and that vision?
Yeah, I've done so much work on what my pillars are, what
Mhm.
my core values are, what I stand for, who I serve. So the experience I had last week when this thing came across was, like, okay, does this hit this, and this? And the answer was yes, and all of those. Okay, let me go forward with it.
Great.
That's a good way to evaluate it. Otherwise you get mission creep.
Yep.
And now you're messaging and doing things that are not what you want to be known for.
Exactly, because someone said something, because what I'm doing is I'm putting together a circle of women who are going to do some intentional meditation to, just long story short, that's what I'm doing. Okay. And someone said something about, oh, you can be known as meditation, something. And I went, no, that's not what I do. I'm not in the meditation space, but this is a tool in my toolbox that I do use personally and that I do teach to people. So this is just another tool I'm giving my clients to be able to achieve their goals.
There you go.
Yeah. So good point on that.
Thank you. Anybody else want to add anything?
Yeah, so I'm similar to Judith. because my women are midlife women, sort of in that menopausal stage, like 45 to 65, perimenopause through, but it's not menopause centric, right? It's really just women in that time of their life. And my business was already a lifestyle business. So it's really now kind of niche down to it's the lifestyle of this demographic of women, right? Who are in transition, have a lot of things going on, want to invent their second half of their life, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So like Judith, I'm centered in life coaching, general life coaching for these women. And I always add my style component to it. So it's like that caterpillar to the butterfly kind of thing. But there's a lot that goes into that, right? There's wellness, there's feeling, you know, it's the physical and the mental. So, you know, I may not be a nutritionist, but I can certainly, you know, incorporate someone who has that background for that age, you know, what's going on in a woman's life during this time from a nutritional perspective, for example, and bring them in or collaborate with them and partner with them. But it's on brand because it's taking care of these women at this point in their life.
Melissa, you have been, this is your first session with us, and you are in, I would love to hear your input if you have any thoughts or perspectives, because I know you do a lot of stuff around with a unique audience as well. So do you have anything that you want to add?
Oh, boy.
And welcome, by the way. Well, I'm glad to see you on our call today. So thank you.
Thanks. I'm sorry I arrived a little late. It's the last time this call was on, I did like the same thing. I was just working. And I was like, oh crap, I missed it entirely. This time I caught it.
Good.
I made it here. Hi, I'm Melissa. I do residential design builds. I do very, very full service. I do everything. And that doesn't even describe it for you. I know it doesn't. That's been my branding struggle. Is I can't explain it to you in an elevator pitch. I can't. I've tried many times. And I know there's going to be a lot of people who think it's a challenge. It's not a challenge. I've been in paid networking groups, and the only thing I can do is get the window to each person to try to like, okay, your in is you get free time. Your in is that you're busy. Your in is this. And then I have a wider conversation about what I actually do. I do permits, I do project management, I do the design, interior design, I do interior architecture, I design the outside, I do decking, I do landscaping.
But I will say though,
Yep.
so that you have a very specific audience so that you work for. So you have, similar to Susan, you have an umbrella of services that you're providing, and your audience is very specific. So
Yes,
why I thought it was
Yeah.
important to call out, you know, you in particular, because I think that you have you are a unique business, you know, compared to what a lot of the folks here are doing. But for you, branding may look a little different in terms of like what are the priorities, what's important to you to make sure that this is. And so in a previous conversation, I remember you talking about like you work with high-end clients. So again, that expensive white glove experience has to come across in everything that goes out the door.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's really funny because I don't work with all the high-end clients either. There's the bored housewife that I don't work with them. That's not my clientele. I'm not here to be your personal shopper. I'm not here just to tell you of great taste and just hang out. That's not what I do. I'm really freaking good at my job, but that's not it. What I look for is people who are really, really busy. And then there's a lot of things in my business that tie in, and people who are really great clients for me really love the pieces of my business. So like I give 10% of my design fees to charity. I volunteer. Volunteerism is mandatory in my business. Now, I am also very, Judith knows this, Linda's familiar, although Linda, I don't think we've had a coffee date. I'm very woo in the background. It's not my main business. I have a lot of stuff I can do, I'm capable of in that direction in spirituality. And it plays a very important role in how I do my business and how I deal with people and how I do that. So I've had a long history of my clientele taking me for granted and not realizing the value. So I've made a lot of shifts in my business in that I have a weird thing, which is if I get a referral partner, so someone who refers me clients versus other kind, like a direct client, I've discovered I have to go through my contract with them. That seems like a really weird thing to do, but it completely lays out who I am and how I operate business and what my relationship with my clients is. It was this like huge thing versus I get people talking about my website all the time. And it's really not that important. It's just support documentation, really. I have a lot of content on it that support who I am and what I do and what my personality is. And it's been very useful to support things, but it's not like a funnel for me. It's just like a support document that's online. So for me, I have a very different network. I actually have a network. I don't like my social media and stuff doesn't get me clients. They keep in touch with my referral network that gets me clients because my clients aren't on social media. They don't all read the same magazines. It's a big struggle that way. So decided they hire me. I also, the other complication is I don't like my design doesn't look the same. It's almost like if you were a photographer and you did all of the photography and then you try to explain, I do all of the photography and they're like, but I can't think of a referral for you. So that's kind of where I've landed with things, but I still have one of my unique struggles is I'm a long-term relationship person. I'm not a speed dating networking person because I can't get it across in that time. But that's what I've tailored my messaging in my website too. So like, it's really interesting because we're on the note of this stage of established and the other one about growing. I'm constantly reevaluating our clientele. I have a very specific path I take before they are my clients. And I've learned so much and I've put all of it into that process. And we know like where the red flags are for me. And there's a ton of them. Like I am happy to say no to everybody. So anyway, I don't know if that's interesting or helpful for anyone, but I was just listening to this and reflecting that I'm still kind of massaging who my client is and where I'm looking for them.
Well, and to that point, it evolves, and also who you work with today may not be who you find yourself with in a few years. So as you move from one stage of your business to the other, as your business evolves, as you, as a human individual, amazing thing about being a business owner is that you get to be the one that makes the decisions. And actually, hang on one second. I wanted to make sure I didn't forget. Okay, no, I haven't gotten there yet. I had an important note that I wanted to share to that point about, you get to decide if you want to make a hard left in your business, you get to be the one that makes that decision. So in stage 4, we start talking about expansion. And so this is about diversifying your product and service offerings, trying to enter different markets or segments. So you guys have heard us talking about, we've been with the coaches, female entrepreneurs, service-based businesses for years. We used to work with hot tubs and swim spas, and I still have a vision of being able to bring those back into the fold, not because I have any sort of interest or passion in hot tubs or swim spas, although I did get to swim in one and they're really cool. But more so because I have experience there and they're actually some pretty cool dudes. So, but I'm not there yet. I don't want to start to focus on somewhere else until I really feel like I have this nailed down really well and it's good and supported and that sort of thing. And then we start looking at growing into a new market and being able to provide those kinds of services. But when I was putting this together, I thought about, because we've talked about Coca-Cola, I've thought about New Coke and the effort that Coca-Cola had made to sort of rebrand themselves and move into this new market back in the 80s. do you remember, what was his name? Max something or other with the computer generated spiky hair, and people were like hardcore old Coke, new Coke, and so on and so forth. And I love the story because number one, like they had the courage to do something different to try to really differentiate and, you know, kick Pepsi to the curb, but ultimately it wasn't a success either. So recognizing when, you know, you've made this change, and also still going back and looking at the things that you were doing in previous stages, like looking at your customer feedback and testimonials, it was not a fit. It didn't win. And so they got rid of it, and they really aligned themselves behind the brand of Coca-Cola. So the idea of Coke being something different kind of went by the wayside with the new Coke that ended up not being anything. Do you guys remember that?
That was probably a pretty expensive A/B test.
Right? You know, and I did mean to go back. So I want to say, I learned something, and I'm sorry, I totally forgot to do this, but I wanted to include in this. I want to say it was actually cereal was the first generation of branding, and it was them trying to create this vision behind why you actually need something that you totally don't need in your life. You do not need cereal. And yet, as Americans, we are like, oh, yeah, the first thing that we do in the morning is we grab our cup of coffee and our bowl of cereal. Like, I want to say it was Kellogg who is kind of credited as being like the first big brand with brand strategy in mind. And they were the first ones to really teach and train us around how to become physically dependent upon a product.
Yeah, it was cornflakes, and he did it by accident.
Yeah. So, and it was because it wasn't, he was creating a product that nobody needed, but he made a need for it. So there was actually a really funny movie about it years and years ago too, with the guy who's married to Sarah Jessica Parker, Ferris Bueller. He's in it. I remember that. Anyways, that's a tangent. Sorry about that. So diversifying your products. Don't, I mean, you know, take credit, Coke, for, you know, taking a risk, adapting and adjusting when it works or it doesn't work, so that you maintain that strong brand and that strong presence. And then in stage 5, maturity phase, we focus on brand reinvention, rebranding and refreshing your brand's look and feel. So I think about in big brand names, you know, for years and years, Apple was the rainbow colored apple, and now they're very consistently the white apple. And think about, you know, when they first released the iPhone, it was years and years and years of the same colors, when all these other smartphones you could get in like a rainbow array of colors. And it wasn't until recently that they really started to expand beyond. You know, first it was black, and then it was black and white, and then it was black and silver and white, and then it was red. And now you have this like Easter egg, you know, Skittle colored varieties to choose from, but not until not only the Apple brand, but the iPhone brand itself was well established, were they willing to start to refresh the look and feel so that there wasn't confusion. It wasn't a diluted message. It was very clear about crisp, clean, you know, all the things that Apple stands for. And then trying new communication channels and that sort of thing as a means of expanding where you have that reach, ensuring that you are evolving with your products and with the market, and those kinds of things. And somewhere I did miss it. But the other thing that I guess I failed to share in here, but something to be thinking about as you're considering your brand and your messaging and your vision and your mission and all of those things is, as you get to create this, as we're all here sitting as business owners, is ultimately what's the long-term plan of the business? Is your goal to create something that's a personal passion and pet project, or are you intending to build something that you could potentially sell in the future? So all of that also has to be taken into consideration when it comes to what does that brand actually stand for? So if you are really all about, you know, this, hey, when I don't want to do this anymore, it can just go away, so be it, then, you know, you get to do whatever you want. But if your goal is to have something that's like scalable to the extent where you could potentially pass it off to someone else, and more than just a Rolodex, but really a full customer experience, the branding process is different. What you include and you consider in your entire brand package is also a little bit different as well. And that is exactly what I have for branding. Anybody want to add or take away anything?
I would, when you first talked about in stage one around your mission, your vision, your values, and having all of those things aligned, and then I look at my pillars, I'm sort of wondering if I'm the only one that feels the alignment, or if others could see the alignment, or if it matters.
How do you think you can find that information out?
I could ask you.
I mean, absolutely. I would say the best people to ask are your customers, like your existing clients.
Can I pop in again? Because this is like so right where I am in my life right now.
Absolutely.
So one of the things I ask some of my most recent clients to do is to write up a paragraph of what it was like to work with me, not a testimonial, different. What was it like for them to work with me? So that I can see that they're taking away what I think I'm offering. Also to hear their words describing what I did for them so that I can use that when we do the About Judith section in my website.
Can I jump in? Of course. I did this with Linda also. One of the things that, and this goes to Melissa, what you're talking about. One of the biggest things you want to have at the top of your page is what is the transformation that someone is going to experience as a result of being in the space with you. So what does that mean? So that means that, Judith, what is it that you do again? Please share. I know that you're in the healing arts.
Yes, I'm a spiritual healer and I work with women entrepreneurs who have already had success in their business, but who've hit that inexplicable wall. And I'm not a business, right?
Christy, that's like list on.
But I'm not a business coach and I'm not a life coach. I actually use different healing modalities to get underneath what's going on and heal your stuff on a soul level. So I have a very different take on what I do.
So I would ask you, and I would, and I did this with Linda and kind of coached her through the process just of getting at what your transformation statement is.
Yeah, I'm working on that, Liz. You got it.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Right
Like,
there.
what do you want people to experience as a result of spending time with you? And Linda, I mean, Linda's website, your website is so awesome now. Like, I know exactly what's going to happen if I sit in a chair or a workshop or a session with Linda. I know exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And
you're right, because my
it's-
mission is to be of service and love and beauty. And I think that's reflected in everything that I do.
Yeah, but that's not deep enough. That's not specific enough. It's like, I can't say, oh, come to my events and you'll feel good. You know what I mean? It's got to be like
No,
specific enough, you know, really super specific. And Melissa, I would so encourage you to when you say is it really worth your time? It's so worth your time. And I'm not talking about the design element, but just because I went to your website because I was really curious about what you did, is that what am I going to experience as a result of spending time with you? I would use the word beauty. We use the word at peace. And because what you're doing is giving people an opportunity to feel at peace, to feel the beauty of their space, you know, at peace, meaning at peace in your space, to be surrounded by something that just makes you feel more comfortable in your body. You know, our space is so sacred and important, you know, when we're working or when we've got, you know, we walk into our home. But I looked at your site and was like, oh, there's such great possibility here for that transformation statement. I know Christy's so sick of hearing that from me, but I just think that's key at the top of the fold on your page.
It's interesting because people are signing on for the journey and not the end result, because you can get a beautiful end result from anybody. In my industry, there are some really horrific journeys to go through to get there.
Yeah, let me tell you, I had one and I hired somebody and it was a effing nightmare. And I finally over and just found somebody else. So
Right,
I gotta tell
right.
you, it's not. You know, if you
Yeah.
have, you say you're into woo woo, and as you can see sitting behind me are my amethysts and my yellow calcite and my
A
so
really cool one.
massive. Oh, good for you. Is that chrysocolla?
I have to look up what this is. I
It's like-
got it specifically because it amplifies your abilities, but it also has hematite in it.
Okay,
It
there you
also
go.
helps take the negative and ground. And I was like, this is perfect.
But it doesn't like, and you can bring that into your work, because I think that's really wonderful that you have the blend of that, like practical of what you do. And also
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
the spiritual
Yeah.
foundation.
You're starting to see the issue. It's not one thing. It's not beauty that, because I don't want the clients who just want a beautiful space. That's not who I'm looking for.
Well, you're
I
looking
did
for somebody to
deep-
feel, it's like a feng shui,
Yeah.
like I work with a feng shui practitioner, and she came into our space. This is my office right now. This is actually in an office building. And she really like, you know, we talked about like, what is it that I really wanted in my space? What did I want it to feel like? And if you
Mhm.
give people a feeling, that's tremendous. Like absolutely tremendous. Like you want people to have that feeling like feng shui experts do, you know?
So I have to wrap our call up. So I'm actually doing a FemCity training on CRM starting in 5 minutes. So does anybody have any homework that they feel like based off of this conversation today that they can work on to help ensure that their branding is clear?
I want Judith's, I don't know if that was a worksheet you were talking about, but about the pillars, about what you stand for. Like, if you have a worksheet, I would love to-
Liz, I sent you a message. We need to connect. So
Okay.
I would
See,
love that also. I'm feeling more, I really felt good. I actually was working on my re-engagement letters and I felt like I'd really nailed it, and now it feels all unnailed and unaligned again.
when you say
So,
re-engagement, are you specifically talking about, I'm sorry, Christy, one more question. Are you specifically talking about trying to re-engage your email newsletter list?
Yes. And so I had written a big long one. I've broken it now into 3 individual ones.
Good.
So then we can automate it. So if you open, you go on. If you didn't open, you'll get the second hit. But now when I think about aligning it with my brand, it's aligned with me. Is it aligned with all of my brand and everything that I do? It would be nice to just have a brainstorming session about
what-
that.
I was
Why don't
just
you-
fixing to suggest, I was just
you know-
fixing to suggest that, Christy. It sounds like that would be beneficial for all of us.
Yeah, so I was gonna say, we've kind of not been using the Facebook group a whole lot of recent. So if you guys would post your like, you know, Linda, you've got your email, if you're comfortable sharing it there and getting feedback. Judith, you've got a resource that people are asking for. If you can post it in the group and know
So-
that, like,
Can I just say that I spent $3,000 for that resource?
okay, so that's not something that you do want to share?
I would have to think about that because
Okay.
I paid a bunch of big money to, you know, to get to that
I
twice
completely
with 2
understand.
different people. So
So is that something that like, maybe if people want to schedule some time with you, like that's part of your services? Is that what you're?
That's what I was thinking. Like, if you've been trained in something, why the hell not start helping,
Right.
you
we can
know?
do that. And Liz, I sent you a private message with my link.
Okay, cool.
So
And,
yes.
you know,
we
we're
can talk
like,
about
we're
that.
not, we don't want the group to be all about like, you know, self-promotion, but like self-promote right now. So if you've got something that this group is asking for, like absolutely, you have the green light, post it in there. It sounds like people are
Okay.
really excited about it. So.
But
Okay.
brainstorming session
And
would be,
Judith, if you want to do that training with Liz and I'd be very happy to get on it with you.
I'd be happy to do that. And y'all know I'm going to put my spin on it too, because I have a certain way that we arrive at those answers. So yes, I'd be, yes.
Sounds
yes,
good to me.
So I'd be happy to do that.
Christy, would you be okay if we like took a separate time from when you have scheduled times, if we all just want to get together and brainstorm?
Yeah, I'm happy to, let me post something in the Facebook group just to start a thread and we'll work something out. So that way
I'd love to get feedback.
it's just
on
like
that.
a Woo playground.
much.
How about that?
Yeah, because I would
We call
love
it
to
the Woo
feedback.
playground. Is that okay?
Yeah,
Maggie, are you okay with it being called the Woo playgrounds? Okay. You're the most, like, apart from me, you're the most, tangible, like, I can hold this thing, you know what I mean? So, okay.
I
Oh,
understand, yes.
Well, the rest of us are just ethereal. We're not tangible at all. So all
Man
of
with
this,
their amethyst.
handle, all my flubber is not
Right.
really there at all, because it's just
Totally.
ethereal.
Totally accurate.
Hey, Christy, good luck with your training at the next hour on
I know,
CRM.
it'll be so easy for me to, like, I will not be so enamored by the dot and the arrow thing. I'll be like, oh yeah, I know how to do that now. So.
And Liz and Linda will talk on the Facebook group and anybody else who wants to join in. Yeah, thank you.
If I
real
don't,
quick-
if I don't
awesome.
respond, if I don't respond, tag me, because I half the time don't pay attention to it. Or just
Okay,
send a
cool.
private message or something.
All
Real
right.
quickly, one
Yeah.
last thing. So tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern time, I'm hosting the last live. I'm not selling it. I'm actually going to record it. The last live perfect customer journey training. So if anybody wants to attend and be a spectator, you are welcome to attend. I'll put the link in the Facebook group as well. And if you show up, I might call on you to say a little something at the end, just as a.
Did you
As a
send
kind
a message out to us on that or an email?
Yeah, there's a series, but I don't think I targeted you all so that I'm not flooding your inbox with stuff, but it is on my website. So if you go to the website, it's on there. So I will post the link it's at 2 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. So this will be recorded. So thanks, ladies.
Thank you. Good
Hasta
session.
luego.
Bye.